Welcome to my channel, my friends. Today I want to take you on a journey, an exciting journey that might change the way you see life, money, and success. What I'm going to share is not only a story, but also a lesson that has changed the lives of millions of people, including mine. We are talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of the most influential books ever written about how to reach financial freedom. Imagine this. You are a young boy or girl watching the adults around you. One adult tells you, study hard, get a good job, and save your money. Another adult says, learn how money really works, make it work for you, and build wealth. These ideas are completely opposite. Which one would you listen to? This was the situation in the life of Robert Kiyosaki, the author of the book. He had two father figures who taught him very different things. He called them his poor dad and his rich dad. Poor dad was his real father. He was very educated, had a stable job as a teacher, and believed that the path to success was hard work, good grades, and climbing the career ladder. But even with all his education, poor dad had financial problems. He lived from paycheck to paycheck, worried about bills, and thought that talking about money was rude. Rich dad, however, had very little formal education. He didn't have a special degree or a government job, but he understood something more important: how money works. Rich dad owned businesses, invested his money, and believed that financial education mattered more than school education. He taught, you don't work for money. You make money work for you. Now imagine Robert as a child standing between these two men. Both gave him advice, but their ideas were completely different. Poor dad told him to find a secure job. Rich dad told him to create jobs for others. Poor dad said that money was the root of all evil. Rich dad said that the lack of money was the real problem. At first, Robert didn't know who was right. He loved both of them, but he started noticing a difference. Poor dad, although intelligent, was always stressed about money. Rich dad, who had less formal education, was calm and confident about the future. One day, Robert asked Rich Dad, why are you so confident about money? Rich Dad smiled and answered, because I know how it works. Most people don't. They spend their whole lives working for money, but they never learn how to make money work for them. That simple sentence changed Robert's thinking forever. It created curiosity in him. He decided to learn from Rich Dad, to understand his knowledge, and to follow his steps. Let's pause here and think. Isn't this true for many of us? We grow up hearing, go to school, get a job, save for retirement. But does anyone teach us how to manage money? How to grow it? How to escape the routine of working only to pay bills? Your money mindset shapes your future. If you see money as something scary or bad, you will always struggle. But if you see money as a tool, something you can control and multiply, you open a door to freedom and opportunity. If you had two roads in front of you, one leading to financial problems and the other to financial freedom, wouldn't you want to know which one to choose? And that is exactly what we will explore today. Rich Dad continued teaching Robert, and every conversation opened his eyes even more. One day, Rich Dad said something that Robert remembered for the rest of his life. The rich don't work for money. This confused Robert. He asked himself, what does he mean? Isn't money the reason people work? Rich Dad explained with a smile, no, Robert. Poor and middle-class people work for money, but rich people make money work for them. That is the real difference. Rich Dad described how most people live in a never-ending cycle, a trap he called a rat race. He said that when you are young, you go to school and learn to study hard so you can find a good job. Then you get that job and start earning money. With the money you earn, you buy things like a house or a car. But these things come with bills, loans, taxes, repairs, and soon you need even more money. So you work harder, and the cycle repeats again and again. It never stops. Rich Dad added, people think they are working for financial security, but in reality, They work for their boss, the government, and the bank. The harder they work, the more they depend on these systems. That's why they never leave the rat race. He gave an example of a man named John. John earns $3,000 a month. When he gets a raise and starts making $4,000, instead of saving or investing, he buys a bigger house, a nicer car, or the newest phone. His expenses grow with his income. Now he must work harder just to cover his new lifestyle. This keeps him trapped forever. Robert realized that this was exactly what his poor dad was doing. Then Rich Dad asked him, "Do you know what financial freedom means?" Robert said no. Rich Dad answered, "Financial freedom means having enough income from your assets or investments to pay for your expenses. When you reach that point, you don't have to work unless you want to. Your money works for you." He continued, "People think being rich means having a high-paying job. But even someone with a big salary can be broke if their expenses are too high. Real wealth comes from owning assets that generate income, not from earning a large paycheck." Then Rich Dad gave Robert a simple but powerful lesson about assets and liabilities. He said, "An asset is something that puts money into your pocket, even when you're not working. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket." He gave two examples. Case 1. Buying a car, a young man saves $10,000 and buys a car. The car needs fuel, maintenance, and insurance. Over time, it loses value. This is a liability because it takes money from him. Case 2. Buying property, another man saves the same $10,000 and buys a small piece of land. He rents it out for $200 a month. The land goes up in value over time and continues to bring income. This is an asset because it puts money into his pocket. Robert was amazed. He understood that many people think liabilities are assets. A house, a car, or expensive clothes may feel like signs of wealth, but they don't make money. They cost money. Rich Dad said, "The rich buy assets first. They invest in things that create more money, businesses, real estate, stocks, and education to build skills. These generate passive income. When they have enough assets, then they can buy luxuries without stress." He continued with another example. Two families both earn $5,000 a month. Family A spends everything on rent, food, and entertainment. At the end of the month, they have nothing left. Family B spends $4,000 and invests $1,000 in stocks. With time, their investments grow and begin to pay $500 a month in dividends. Eventually, the passive income becomes large enough to cover all their expenses. Family B becomes financially free, while Family A stays stuck in a rat race. Robert began to understand that wealth is not about how much you earn, but how you manage what you earn. Rich Dad told Robert that most people say, "I can't afford it," but rich people ask, "How can I afford it?" This small change in thinking makes a big difference. He explained that when you say, "I can't afford it," your mind stops searching for solutions. But when you ask, "How can I afford it?" your brain becomes active and starts looking for ways to make it possible. Rich Dad gave Robert a simple exercise. Whenever he wanted something but believed he couldn't pay for it, he had to write down 3 ways he could make it happen. Maybe he could reduce unnecessary expenses, start a small side job, or learn a new skill that helps him earn more. This exercise was meant to train his mind to think like wealthy people. Robert still felt unsure about investing. He asked Rich Dad, "What if I lose my money?" Rich Dad smiled and said, "That's what separates the rich from the poor. The poor fear losing money, so they avoid taking risks. The rich understand that mistakes are part of learning. When you fail, you don't quit. You learn and try again." Rich Dad then shared a simple plan for building wealth, even with a small amount of money. 1. Track your spending. Write down everything you spend during the month. Then find expenses you can reduce or eliminate. 2. Start small. You don't need a lot of money to begin. Start with small investments, like low-cost stocks or a savings account with interest. 3. Learn every day. Read books, attend seminars, or find mentors who can teach you about money. 4. Build assets first. Focus on buying things that generate income, rental property, a small business, or investments, before spending on luxury items. 5. Reinvest your profits. Don't spend the money your investments earn. Use it to buy more assets and grow your wealth faster. As Robert followed these lessons, he noticed a shift in his thinking. He no longer saw money as something he needed to spend right away. Instead, he saw it as a tool that could help him earn even more. He started searching for investment opportunities, and slowly his mindset changed, from fear and scarcity to confidence and abundance. Rich Dad's lessons were transforming his life step by step. One day, Rich Dad told Robert something new. To become wealthy, you must learn to control your emotions. Robert didn't understand and asked, "What do emotions have to do with money?" Rich Dad replied, "Everything. Most people let fear and greed control their decisions. These emotions keep them poor." Rich Dad explained that fear is what makes people stay in jobs they don't like. They are afraid of not having enough money to pay bills, so they choose security instead of taking risks that could make them truly wealthy. He gave an example. Many people dream of starting their own business, but they never do. They fear failure, they fear losing money, or they fear what others might say. So they stay in the same job and never grow beyond survival. Then he talked about greed, another emotion that traps people. Greed leads people to believe that buying expensive things will make them happy. A new car, a big house, or luxury items may look impressive, but they usually bring more expenses and stress. Rich Dad said true happiness comes from freedom. The freedom to do what you enjoy and to spend time with people you love. And this freedom comes from building assets, not buying things you don't really need. Rich Dad told Robert, "If you want to control your emotions, you need knowledge." People fear money because they don't understand it. They don't know how investing works, so they stay away. They don't understand taxes, so they pay too much. They don't know how to build wealth, so they stay poor. He suggested that Robert learn about 1. Investing, how stocks, real estate, and other assets can grow money. 2. Taxes, how the rich legally reduce their taxes using smart strategies. 3. Markets, understanding when to buy and when to sell. Rich Dad said, "The more you know, the less you fear. Knowledge gives you power over your emotions." One of the strongest lessons Rich Dad gave Robert was about changing the way he looked at money. He said, "Stop thinking like a consumer. Start thinking like an investor." To explain this, he gave a simple example. Imagine you earn $1,000. A consumer will quickly spend it on clothes, gadgets, or entertainment. But an investor will ask, "How can I use this $1,000 to make more money?" An investor might buy some stocks, start a small business project, or invest in a course that improves their skills. Over time, the investor's money grows, while the consumer's money disappears. Rich Dad also taught Robert to see opportunities that most people do not notice. He said, "A lot of people miss opportunities because they are too busy working or spending. The rich always look for chances to grow their wealth." Then he gave Robert an exercise. When you walk down the street, don't only look at the stores. Ask yourself, how could I own one of these businesses? What does a business like this need to succeed? Train your mind to think like an owner, not a customer. Robert began practicing this and soon discovered that opportunities were everywhere. He noticed a small cafe for sale, an old house that could be repaired and rented out, or even ideas for a website that could become a business. As he learned and practiced, his vision of the world changed. He stopped seeing limits and started seeing possibilities. But not everyone supported his new thinking. Robert began to face criticism from people around him. Some said, "You're too young to invest." Others said, It's too risky. Even his poor dad advised him to focus on a safe job instead of trying to build businesses or investments. But Rich Dad told him, people criticize what they don't understand. They speak from their own fears. If you listen to them, you will live the same life they live, stuck in the rat race. Rich Dad encouraged him to stay focused and surround himself with people who like learning, growing, and thinking big. He said, your environment can build you or break you. Rich Dad also taught Robert that success doesn't start with big steps. It starts with small, simple actions. He shared a story about a young woman who wanted to invest but had only $50. Instead of waiting until she had a lot of money, she started buying small shares of inexpensive companies. Over time, these small investments grew. She GA in confidence, learned more, and later made bigger investment choices. Rich Dad said, success grows step by step. Every small win gives you the courage to aim higher. He also explained that daily habits play a big role in building wealth. He told Robert, your habits decide your future. If you save and invest a small amount every month, it will grow. But if you spend everything you earn, you will always struggle. He suggested 2 key habits. 1. Pay yourself first, before paying bills or buying anything. Set aside a part of your income for savings or investing. 2. Track your progress. Keep a journal of your financial results. When you see growth, even small growth, it motivates you to continue. Then Rich Dad warned Robert about a common mistake: impatience. He said that many people give up because they don't see quick results. They want to become rich fast, and when it doesn't happen, they stop trying. Rich Dad compared wealth building to planting a seed. When you plant a seed, you don't get fruit right away. You have to water it, protect it, and wait. With time, it becomes a strong tree. Money works the same way. He continued, money is a tool, not the final goal. The real goal is freedom. Freedom to live the life you want, to follow your passions, and to help the people you care about. When you reach this kind of freedom, then you truly understand what it means to be rich. Robert left that lesson inspired and more determined than ever. He was ready to break out of the rat race, build assets, and create the life he always dreamed of. After many lessons, Rich Dad told Robert, now you are ready for the most important truth about becoming wealthy. Success doesn't depend on luck or special talent. It depends on your mindset, your discipline, and your actions. Robert listened carefully, excited to hear more. Rich Dad explained that many people dream about being rich, but very few actually do something to reach that dream. Most people wait for the perfect moment. They wait for a better job, more money, or the right opportunity. But Rich Dad said, there is no perfect time. The best time to start is now. To make his point clear, he shared an example of 2 friends. One always said, I will start saving and investing when I earn more. The other began saving just $10 a week. Even though he didn't earn much, 10 years later, the second friend had built a large amount of money, while the first friend was still waiting for the right moment to start. Rich Dad said, opportunities are everywhere. Only people who take action see results. He continued, don't wait until you feel ready. Begin with what you have. Robert realized that the first step is usually the hardest, but also the most important. Rich Dad also talked about failure. He said that many people believe failure is the opposite of success, but that is not true. Failure is part of the journey to success. Every successful person has failed many times, but they kept going. Rich Dad told Robert a story about a businessman who started 5 companies and all of them failed. People laughed at him and called him foolish. But he didn't give up. On his 6th attempt, he built a company that became extremely successful. Rich Dad asked Robert, do you think he would have succeeded if he stopped after his first failure? Then Rich Dad spoke about self-discipline. He said it is easy to spend money, but it takes real discipline to save and invest it. He repeated one of his key rules: always pay yourself first. Even if you have bills or debts, you must set aside a part of your income for savings or investments before paying anyone else. Rich Dad explained that this habit forces you to become creative with the rest of your money. It also helps you build the discipline needed to grow wealth. He noticed that many people let their doubts stop them from following their dreams. Rich Dad told Robert, "Your thoughts shape your life. If you think about your fears, you will find reasons to fail. But if you focus on your dreams, you will find ways to succeed." As their lessons were coming to an end, Rich Dad shared one more surprising idea. He said, "The richest people are those who give back." Robert didn't understand and asked, "How can giving make you richer?" Rich Dad explained that helping others creates value. When you share your knowledge, support someone, or donate to a cause, it brings positive energy into your life. It also builds strong relationships, and those relationships can lead to new opportunities. Rich Dad told a story about a wealthy man who created a scholarship program for students from poor families. His generosity changed many lives. Later, the man received recognition and built new partnerships that helped his businesses grow even more. Rich Dad said, "Giving doesn't make you poorer. It makes your life richer." He ended with a powerful message: the moment you stop learning, you stop growing. Robert understood that financial education and personal growth never end. You must always stay open to new knowledge. Years later, Robert looked back and realized how deeply Rich Dad's lessons had changed him. He had created wealth not only in money, but also in freedom, confidence, and the ability to help others. Robert shared an important message. No matter where you start, you can change your future. What matters most is your mindset and your willingness to act. He said that wealth is not only about money. It's about building a life where you can follow your passions, support others, and live without regrets. As you finish this story, remember that your journey to financial freedom can begin right now. Start small. Stay consistent. Learn from your mistakes. Dream big. And never give up, because the only real limit is the one you place on yourself. Robert understood that Rich Dad's lessons were not just about money. They were about how to think, how to grow, and how to take control of your life. Each lesson helped him see the world in a new way. He realized that becoming wealthy starts with changing your mindset. If you think like most people, you will live like most people, always working hard but never moving forward. But if you learn to think like the rich, you can create opportunities instead of waiting for them. Rich Dad often reminded Robert that most people choose comfort instead of growth. They prefer to stay where they feel safe, even if it means giving up their dreams. Rich Dad said that growth happens outside your comfort zone. When you challenge yourself, take risks, and push past your fears, you start building a stronger version of yourself. He explained that the world is full of people who want success but are not ready to face discomfort. They want wealth, but they avoid taking the steps needed to build it. Rich Dad said, "If you want a different life, you must be willing to do things that others don't want to do." He also taught Robert that money follows value. This means that the more value you create for others, the more rewards you receive. Rich Dad said that rich people focus on solving problems, helping others, and improving the world around them. When you provide value, you attract opportunities, clients, and partners. Another important lesson Rich Dad shared was that you must learn to handle pressure. Money problems, competition, and unexpected challenges will always appear. Rich Dad said, "If you can stay calm under pressure, you can achieve anything." He told Robert that many people fail not because they don't have skills, but because they cannot handle stress. Rich Dad also talked about the importance of building strong relationships. He explained that wealthy people do not grow alone. They surround themselves with people who inspire them, support them, and help them move forward. He said, "Your network is your net worth." Robert learned that the people you spend time with can influence your mindset, your habits, and your future. Another lesson was about being proactive. Rich Dad said that many people wait for things to happen to them. They wait for perfect conditions, the right time, or someone to give them a chance. But rich people create their own chances. They look for possibilities every day, make decisions quickly, and take responsibility for their actions. Rich Dad also taught Robert to think long-term. He said that poor and middle-class people usually think only about today, about paying bills and buying things. But the rich think years ahead. They take actions today that will benefit them in the future. Robert learned that long-term thinking helps you stay patient, consistent, and focus on your goals. He also learned about the importance of building systems. Rich Dad said that rich people do not work harder. They build systems that work for them. A system can be a business, an investment, a team, or even a habit. When your systems work, you gain time and freedom. Robert understood that systems are what allow the rich to earn money, even when they're not working. Rich Dad warned Robert that many people quit too soon. They start something but give up when it becomes difficult. He said that success requires patience and determination. Robert learned that every big achievement takes time, and that quitting is the only real failure. Rich Dad also talked about flexibility. He said that the world changes quickly, and you must be ready to adapt. Wealthy people are always learning, improving their skills, and finding new opportunities. Robert realized that being open-minded is one of the keys to long-term success. Lastly, Rich Dad told Robert that true wealth means having choices. When you are financially free, you can decide how to live your life. You can choose your work, your schedule, and your future. This freedom is the real meaning of being rich. As Robert continued to grow, he started applying more and more of Rich Dad's lessons in real life. He realized that knowledge alone was not enough. He had to use it. Rich Dad always said, "Learning without action is useless." So Robert began making small investments, trying new ideas, and looking for chances to build assets. Some attempts were successful, others were not. But every experience taught him something valuable. Rich Dad often reminded him that money reacts to your decisions. If you make smart choices, money grows. If you make emotional or careless choices, money disappears. He told Robert that emotional control is one of the biggest advantages a person can have. When everyone is scared to invest, the brave and educated people find great opportunities. When everyone is greedy and buying too much, the wise people stay calm and make better decisions. Robert also learned the importance of being financially educated. Rich Dad said, "The world changes fast. New technologies, new markets, new laws, you must stay informed." He encouraged Robert to continue reading books, learning from successful people, and paying attention to how money flows around the world. Rich Dad believed that financial education is a lifelong journey. Another important idea Rich Dad taught was that your job and your income are not the same thing. He explained that a job gives you a salary, but an asset gives you freedom. Many people depend completely on their jobs, and that is why they feel insecure. If they lose their job, they lose everything. But rich people build assets, so they never depend on one source of money. Robert understood that the secret is not to work more hours, but to work smarter. Rich Dad also helped Robert understand taxes. He said that poor and middle-class people usually pay the highest percentage of their income in taxes. They don't know how to reduce their tax burden legally, so they pay too much. Wealthy people use corporations, companies, and investment strategies to pay less in taxes and keep more what they earn. Rich Dad said, "Financial knowledge allows you to use the system instead of being trapped by it." Another lesson was about learning from mentors. Rich Dad explained that successful people learn from those who already achieved what they want. A mentor can save you years of mistakes. Robert learned to ask questions, study successful examples, and follow proven strategies. He discovered that advice from the wrong people can slow you down, while advice from the right people can speed up your success. Rich Dad also taught Robert to protect his assets. He said that building wealth is only half the battle. The other half is keeping it safe. He explained the importance of insurance, legal protection, diversification, and smart planning. Robert understood that wealthy people don't gamble. They take calculated risks. As Robert grew older, he started seeing how different his life was compared to people who followed the traditional path. Study hard, get a job, save money. He saw many friends who earned good salaries but still struggle with debt. They bought expensive cars, large homes, and many things they didn't really need. Their expenses kept growing, and they stayed trapped in the rat race. Robert realized that Rich Dad's lessons were not just about money. They were about living a better life. When you have financial freedom, you have time to focus on your passions, spend time with family, and help others. You can choose your future instead of letting circumstances control you. He also saw that people often limit themselves. They believe they are not smart enough, not lucky enough, or not talented enough. But Rich Dad taught him that the biggest limit is in your mind. If you believe you can grow, learn, and improve, then you can change your life. If you believe you cannot, then you will stay where you are. Robert started teaching other people what he had learned. He wanted to help others escape the rat race and create a better future. He believed that everyone has the power to change their financial situation, no matter where they start. All they need is the right mindset, the right education, and consistent action. Robert also learned that wealth gives you the opportunity to give back. Helping others creates meaning and purpose. Rich Dad always said, "Money is a tool. Use it to build, not to destroy." As Robert continued sharing Rich Dad's lessons with others, he realized how many people felt lost when it came to money. Many worked hard every day, but still struggled to pay bills. Others were afraid of taking risks because they had been taught to fear failure. Robert understood that what people really needed was not just motivation. They needed a new way of thinking, a financial mindset that could help them break free from their limitations. He noticed that most people were taught to think small. They were told to be satisfied with a stable job, a small house, and a simple life. But Rich Dad taught him to think bigger, to imagine a future where he could have freedom, choices, and purpose. Robert started encouraging others to dream bigger as well. He said that dreams are the first step toward creating a new reality. Rich Dad's lessons also help people understand the difference between working for money and making money work for them. Robert explained that if you rely only on a salary, your income is limited by the number of hours you can work. But if you build assets, businesses, investments, properties, your income can continue growing even when you're not working. This idea surprised many people, but also opened their eyes to new possibilities. Another important part of Robert's message was that anyone can start building wealth, no matter their age or financial situation. He met young people who believed they were too inexperienced and older people who believed it was too late for them. Robert told them that the best time to start is always now. Even small steps can create big changes over time. A single investment in a new skill or a habit of saving can improve your future dramatically. Robert also emphasized that wealth is not created overnight. It requires patience, discipline, and learning from mistakes. Many people want quick results, but real success usually comes slowly. Rich Dad had taught him that the process is just as important as the result. Every challenge teaches you something. Every failure makes you stronger. Robert encouraged people to stay consistent and trust the journey. He also reminded them that fear is natural. Even successful investors feel fear sometimes. But the difference is that they don't let fear stop them. Instead, they use knowledge, planning, and experience to make better decisions. Robert told people that courage grows each time you face your fears. One of the most powerful lessons Robert shared was about responsibility. He said that your financial life is your responsibility. Blaming the economy, the government, or other people will not help you grow. When you take responsibility, you also take back your power. You realize that you can change your situation through learning and action. Robert also talked about the importance of building good habits. He explained that small daily habits, reading for 20 minutes, saving a little money, learning a new skill, can create huge results over months and years. Good habits build strong foundations. Bad habits destroy opportunities. He reminded people that wealth is not just about money. It also includes health, relationships, knowledge, and happiness. A truly rich life is balanced. You should care for your body, mind, and emotions just as much as your finances. Robert explained that when you live a balanced life, you make better decisions and attract better opportunities. As more people learned from Robert, many began to see real changes. They felt more confident, more focused, and more hopeful. They started setting goals, taking action, and building assets. Some started businesses. Others invested in real estate. And some simply began saving money each month. Every step moved them closer to financial freedom. Robert felt grateful for everything Rich Dad had taught him. He knew that without those lessons, his life would have been completely different. He wanted to honor Rich Dad by helping others grow, change their mindset, and build better futures. He ended his message with a simple but powerful idea. Your future is created by the choices you make today. Choose to learn. Choose to act. Choose to believe in yourself. That is how financial freedom begins.